Hey, my name is Byron Summerdahl, CTO at Ackland Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm joined here with four uh, good friends and coworkers, and we're going to talk about some of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis to to produce great software. So, starting with Carlos, why don't you guys introduce yourselves, and then I'll take back over after.
Sure. My name is Carlos Fontecha. I'm currently a quality assurance lead at Ackland Avenue. Most of my daily work consists on doing manual tests for many of the web applications that we have as projects. I'm going to pass the mic to Juan Jose.
Um, my name is Juan Jose Guevara. I'm a software developer for Ackland Avenue, and I develop software on my days. Yeah. Rene.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Rene Rosa. I'm working as a Scrum Master in Ackland Avenue. I'm in charge of the setting and scheduling some meetings related with the Scrum, and also starting the environment of the kickoff of the project, like configuring the integration servers, and that's so far. And I will throw the ball to Richard.
Okay, so my name is Richard Siwadi, and I'm a software engineer slash developer at Ackland Avenue. And well, I develop software, and I'm lucky enough to work on some really great projects here in Ackland Avenue. And I'll tag
What
the
do you
ball
mean
to
by
Byron.
software engineer slash developer?
I don't really know what the difference is, so I'm guessing a developer is the same as an engineer.
Okay. And there's probably some people out there that would try to argue about that. I'm not sure. I'm I'm not really either one. I'm not really. Well, I don't know. I'm a software developer, but I was never trained to be that, so I always feel weird calling myself an engineer. But there's trained engineers too. All they got to do is push buttons. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's just get into our topic for the day, which is the just a piece of our process that we go through day to day, and we just wanted to talk about that and try to encourage others to use the same process because we think it's great. So I'm going to share my screen so that you can see what's going on. Can everybody see that?
Odin?
Yep.
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 Yeah. Good to go.
Okay, excellent. So, so I'm calling this finish strong because I like the idea of finish strong. We start strong a lot of times. Typically, have no problem starting strong, um, and sometimes in the middle of a run, if we're talking about like running a race, sometimes in the middle of a run we might get a little tired and we might dip down a little bit, but in racing terms, it's extremely important to finish very strong because if you use up too much of your energy in the beginning, then at the end of the race you don't have enough energy to try to push through and win that race. So we use the idea of Scrum in our daily process. And I think the same really applies. We can use a lot of energy at the beginning of the sprint because we're excited and things are new. And as the newness wears off, we have to maintain a level of energy so that we can actually finish very strongly and be able to finish the sprint and finish on time and finish well. So by the way, as I'm talking through some of these points, I really hope that you guys will interrupt me and throw some questions out there, just in case I don't make something very clear, or just in case there's another way to explain something. Okay, so the first question that I wanted to pose to you guys is, what is the goal of the sprint? What's the goal of any sprint that we do? Remember?
I'm gonna jump in and improvise the ideas I have on this. Um, Mainly, I know that it's planning on what's gonna be achieved like for a week or 2 weeks. The idea is to have all the tasks managed.
Yeah, but the important thing is deliver.
Deliver. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to deliver something new to the client that is usable,
I think the
brings value.
I think the goal should be like what Juan Jose says, a demo after a sprint, something that you can actually show.
Something tangible.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
can add
something that brings value to the client.
I can add that we need to deliver something, but that thing that we deliver should be value for the client.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I totally
Yeah.
agree.
I didn't hear any wrong answers there. All really, really good. So I'll give you the answer that I came up with, and that is a fantastic demo. So to me, the goal of any sprint is that fantastic demo where the client leaves the demo feeling like, yes, they did exactly what I wanted them to do. I'm starting to see my creation come to life. So to me, fantastic demo is our goal, and that's what I wanted to talk about today is just how to produce that fantastic demo. Um, the goal of a sprint could be just getting the job done, or it could be finishing the tasks or finishing on time. But if we allow the fantastic demo to be our goal, then we're going to accomplish all of those things, and we're going to be focused on making sure that the client is very happy. Any questions?
Yep.
I think we're clear on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really feel like Jean-Luc Picard communicates how we want the client to feel. You can almost see a tear in his left eye. So happy, so happy. Okay, so keys to a fantastic demo. Let's just kind of talk through a few things that can help us help us be successful in the planning stage. So the sprint planning is extremely important to me to be able to produce this demo. We're not just doing a fantastic demo on the Friday at the end of the 2-week sprint. In order to have that fantastic demo, we need to be thinking about that from 14 days before that, or at the beginning, or before the sprint even starts. We should be planning and getting ready for that fantastic demo. So that starts at that sprint planning meeting 2 weeks before. We're deciding how much can be done in that sprint. We're deciding what works best for a great demo, and we're considering also the client priorities, choosing cards, what we're going to do over the sprint, and we're going to plan way ahead of time what we're going to do. We take into consideration the client's epic priorities. That's a must. We have to respect their priorities as far as the epics go. But we don't have to necessarily we don't have to just blindly do the features of the cards inside of that epic with no priorities in mind. We can actually pick which cards or features inside of the epic that we think will make the best demo.
I have a quick question here.
Go ahead.
Could you clarify what's an epic?
Yeah.
I've been listening to it lately, but I don't have what's the key idea behind it?
Really good question. So we work with user stories a lot. A user story is a smaller piece of functionality, like a user can log in. A user can can register. A user uh, can can say that he forgot his password, reset his password through a forgot password mechanism or something. But the epic is that grouping of those user stories. An epic is that those user stories could be grouped into a login or authentication or account epic, user account epic, where where you take 5 or 6 user stories, or maybe even 10, 20 user stories, and group them into one epic. So the client can say, to me, that login is very important. I want authentication to be one of the first things that we do. And so we say, yeah, that's fine, no problem. Um, but um, but we get to decide then inside of that epic which user stories we do first. So an epic is a grouping, and then the user stories are smaller.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We use epics when a user story doesn't work just by its own, and you have several user stories that need to work together in order to uh, make the whole feature work. And that's when you use an epic to describe a very big feature that it is composed by more small user stories.
Okay, is this epic usually given another lane when we use Trello, or not?
It's not necessarily given a separate list or any kind of structure that groups them. Sometimes we might use like labels or tags to group them. In some Kanban tools or project management tools, it might give you the ability to group things together. So that's the possibility. But in our process, we don't have necessarily cards that represent those epics.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe the epics, it will not be shown in the Trello board that uh, as a team we see in our project, because maybe the cards that you see in Trello come from those epics that 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 are suggested by the client and was added as a card by the product owner. Correct, Butter?
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes when we're starting into a grooming phase or a planning phase, we might look at one card and it's huge. Like to us as developers, we see that card is representing a lot of stuff, and so they might have created an epic, really, and then we have the job when we're grooming to get in there and split that card up into several smaller cards. So that also might be another example of an epic.
Okay.
So we want to be a showman when we're planning the sprint. What I mean by that is I kind of think of a circus. A circus. What do you call that? Director or the guy with a top hat? What is that called? The circus master? Oh, my English is so
Something like
bad.
that.
Okay.
No
The
idea.
ringmaster. He's the ringmaster.
Ringmaster,
Okay.
right.
Man, my English. Okay, so the ringmaster in a circus, I imagine, is responsible for making sure that the show is extremely interesting and exciting to the audience. So he is a showman. He is somebody that he's responsible not only for delivering a great show, but for also planning a great show. So he decides when to bring out the lions, when to bring out the people that walk the tightrope. Um, what order do things go in? And he's thinking about the maximum impact on the audience. So we're not exactly working in a three-ring circus. We don't work with lions and tightrope walkers, but we can try to be showmen in how we plan our sprints. We should be asking ourselves, how can I wow the client with this card or feature? We can be asking other questions like, what order should I put things in to yield the maximum impact on the client? How can I tell a story with the sprint demo? And this is all stuff that we're thinking of 2 weeks before the demo even happens.
Byron, maybe I can argue that sentence about how can I wow the client with this card feature, because in the last sprint planning that I be, maybe we suggest some feature that could be nice, but sometimes we say make it as simple as possible. So what it could be the difference between as simple as possible, between how can I wow the client with this card of future?
Yeah,
So what is the limit? What is the limit of asking that question?
That's a really, really good question. So we should, as creators and developers and planners, we should definitely try to help the client with some of their ideas. We can definitely make suggestions along the way, and as developers, we can make those suggestions to our product owner, and the product owner can then take those suggestions to the client, and maybe the client will say, yeah, we got to do that. So that's a service that we can provide to the client, but in the end, it's always the client's decision whether or not they're going to do that. Let's say our idea is going to add an extra day to the work. Well, the client is going to have to pay for that day, so they definitely need to have the ability to say yes or no. If it's going to add 5 minutes, then to me that's a no-brainer. Let's just do it. If it's going to add 5 minutes and it's going to make the feature a lot better, then go ahead and do it. I mean, we're talking about, like, okay, the client did not think to add a loading spinner on a drop-down. We can go ahead and add that. We know that that's not going to mess with the user or the client's requirements. It's not going to mess with their business processes. It's only going to enhance the experience for the user. So that's something that we can definitely add automatically.
Okay.
Moving things around on the screen a little bit, pixels here, pixels there, making an image not blurry, things like that. Those are things that we can do to make the user experience even better. We do all kinds of things like that in the back end that the client will never know about. For instance, we try to adhere to clean code practices, good engineering techniques. We're maintaining a clean database. We're doing things in our continuous integration server that the client has no clue about and they don't care about. All they care about is, does my software work? Does it look good?
okay.
Stuff like that.
I had another question. What if this takes more than 5 minutes? If it's something that would take a lot of work, how long should it take for us or the product owner to socialize this and follow up with the client, like a day or two, or on a weekly meeting?
So
I
go
have,
ahead.
I have some comments on that. So one important thing to keep in mind is to not go overboard, because you have to keep a balance in everything you do. And so one important thing about software development is to keep the quality. And by quality, we just don't mean about doing something good. It's about doing what the client expects. So if you're saying like, I'm gonna add this and this and this, but that is not what the client asked, and then that's when you have to say to yourself, does the client need this? Does the client wants this? And that's something you should always keep in mind when you're creating quality software, because that's the point. You have to give what the client expected.
Right.
And
I like
yeah.
how you said we don't go overboard. Um, so we want to make sure that we're sticking to the client's requirements, which is why we leave ourselves the right to make suggestions, and we pass those on to our product owner. The product owner can pass them on to the client. The client always gets to decide whether or not he or she is going to do the thing that we suggested. But it's a two-way street. We can definitely make those suggestions, and we're good at what we do. We really excel in creating great software and creating good experiences, and we know what we're talking about. So I think a lot of the times the clients do listen to what we say, and and most of the time they decide that they're going to do what we want. And also the product owners a lot of times will just say, yeah, we're just going to do that. And I've heard that several times.
Baron, another question comes to my mind about this. I know that everyone is able to suggest any feature that can be valuable for the client and the client and the purpose that clients say, "Wow, I love that." But who is in charge to approve or not approve this kind of feature, as a team or the product owner or I mean for the thing that are not necessary to be approved for the clients.
Right. Well, if it's something quick, like that loader, the loading spinner, then if it's like typical user experience, like it's expected that we're going to be doing that kind of thing. Like I would say we should always put loading spinners on anything that loads via Ajax that's going to take a little bit of extra time. So that kind of thing I don't think has to go through the product owner. I think that we as developers, we just decide that we're going to do that to make the feature that we're working on really finished. And then Carlos can come behind, QA can come behind and look at that. And if we didn't add a loading spinner, Carlos can say, hey, this is not a very good user experience. You all need to add a loading spinner. We can go right back to the devs, and maybe the devs just go ahead and add that loading spinner. I don't know that has to involve the product owner. It can, and maybe Carlos doesn't notice that either, and maybe it only gets noticed by the product owner. So product owner comes and says, hey, we need loading spinners. But I like how Juan Jose said we just don't need to go overboard with that. So we're talking about a simple loading spinner that's going to take you an extra 5 minutes, maybe,
And
to add. We're not talking about a huge loading spinner framework that took you 5 hours to create.
and the important thing I think is that it doesn't affect the expectation of the client.
Right.
I mean, when you're adding that kind of things, the client will not be like, I didn't ask for that.
Yeah.
Because it's basic UI stuff. When you're changing the specifications of what the client wanted, that's when you have to ask the client,
Right.
should we do this, or I think we could improve this by doing this and that. And that's when you ask the client, and then he should be the one that says, okay, let's do it.
I'll give you another example of a time when we probably shouldn't, or we should ask the client, and it may come back as a no. So, a lot of times when we're working on software, we come into contact with the idea of a category. And a lot of software has these ideas of categories. So, like a product category. And we might think, how cool would it be for the client to be able to have an admin control panel where they can go in and add more categories, remove categories, things like that. And so we could decide as developers that we're going to create this big elaborate or even a simple admin control panel where the user can create and add and delete and modify these categories. When that might take 2 or 3 days to create that, the user or the client maybe we didn't realize, though, the client, the industry where they work has these categories, these 5 categories that have not changed in 30 years. And they don't want an admin control panel. They'll never use it. And now we're saying they have to pay us for developing that admin control panel that they never asked for. So that's a thing where like in that case we really should have hard coded the categories into the code, or we should have done something extremely simple that's not necessarily configurable or database driven. So that would be a case where we can ask the product owner, hey, should we be making these database driven? And if the client says, well, no, they haven't changed in 30 years, they're not going to change in another 30 years. So that's our answer. That's the kind of thing where we don't have to, where we're going to get a no. We don't get to create that admin control panel because the user doesn't want it, they don't want to pay for it. But this has been a great discussion, this piece. But what I'm talking about with being a showman and how can I wow the client with this card or feature is not so much how can I make this card or feature more interesting in the code or in the UI, but I'm talking about how can I present it to the user also. How can I talk about this feature to the client? How can I show it to them in the demo that's going to tell the story of why this is important to them? How can I remind them of the value of this thing that I just created? And that's the kind of thing that we can be thinking about 2 weeks before the thing has even been created. We should also never be satisfied with a boring demo script. I've been in some really boring demos, and I know you all have too. They're really hard to sit through, and it's kind of like there are those awkward silences where if someone starts cracking their knuckles, it's the loudest thing in the meeting, and it's really excruciating. And we are in charge of these demos. We're running the demos, so there's no reason why we're not boring people. So there's no reason why we should make them boring. It should be considered a cardinal sin to bore our clients with their own product. This is their chance to come away from a meeting feeling awesome about their product that we just created for them. So we should never be satisfied with a boring demo script.
Can you think of a specific piece that got you bored?
Oh man!
On a
Yes.
demo, just
Yes.
to have a concrete example in mind.
Absolutely. So the best example that I've got is we did a project for a local company about 2 years ago. I don't think any of you all worked on this project, though some of you were working in the company at the time. We were hired just to do the REST API. There was another design company that was going to be doing all the front-end work. All we had to do was create the API. So we had no UI to show. All we were showing was API stuff. All right, so looking back on that, they say that the retrospect is 2020, so our vision is much better looking back on the past. Looking back on that, I can say that it was probably a big mistake not having some sort of integration with the UI before the demo. We should have been collaborating with we should have been collaborating with the UI company to have a joint demo. We shouldn't have been doing a separate API demo, because how in the world do you demo an API? Hello, Postman. You throw some URLs in and you throw some payloads in and you show the response. It's just you're gonna pull your hair out. It's so boring. So we should have been collaborating with the UI people and integrating that before the end of the sprint to demo the whole product together. That's exactly what we should have done. But if for some reason we didn't have that option, which at that time we really didn't feel like we had that option. We probably could have asked for it, but we didn't. But we should have at least come up with a faster transition between API calls. You know, if we're going to show off 10 API calls in a demo meeting, we should have come up with a more interesting looking tool, talked about maybe the value from the different API calls, and not had so much. We had a lot of like awkward silence while we were mousing around trying to make Postman work and things like that. So, that's my example of a boring demo. I've seen some other boring demos too, but that's more the fault of just not very much planning, not really trying to be a showman, not trying to tell a story with the cards that we have finished. So I'm not talking about trying to get up there and have like this amazing radio voice and be that 3-ring circus master. But I'm really just talking about trying to present the work that we've done in a way that's interesting, that tells a story, and that has some sort of logical flow to it. You know, just simple stuff that we can do to make the demo better.
Like having more announced from Tigo.
Yeah, possibly. Or I don't know. I mean, maybe after every card, we can have Carlos take his microphone off and do a backflip with his camera. I don't know. You know, that's kind of a silly example, but there might be some other examples that are actually possible. You know, maybe we allow some devs or some participants from the sprint to tell a story about what happened to them while they were working on this feature. I don't know. All kinds of different possibilities. But this is what I'm talking about here is mostly the sprint planning. We're thinking about this stuff before the sprint even starts. And I think the main point is that we're trying to pick cards that are going to demo well. We're also trying to think about the order that they're going in, and also trying to make sure that that we're thinking about them in an interesting way. All right, ready to move on?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So this next section I called single-minded focus. So to me, it's pretty important for the entire team to work together with a single focus in mind. So as we said, the goal of any sprint is the demo, and that demo has to be simply spectacular. So not only are we going to be making sure that our sprint planning is actually more like demo planning. Not only are we going to respect the client's priorities and pick the right cards and think about things from a showman perspective, but we're going to be working the entire sprint. Everybody from devs to QA to PO to SM, everybody should be working in one single direction with one single focus. And that's that demo. Everything that we do should contribute to the demo somehow. So our process right now with Scrum is we're having daily stand-ups, and we don't just do chat stand-ups unless it's like in a rare situation where we really can't do video. We're doing video chats, video stand-ups. And we try not to do just audio because that camera really helps everybody feel connected. The Scrum Master helps during the sprint. The Scrum Master is helping the developers adhere to the Agile development habits and removing roadblocks, reminding the devs to never stay stuck for more than 1 hour, and to consistently test first their development. So how does test-first development contribute to a great demo? Well, we don't just test so that we have test coverage, but we test so that we have the ability to refactor quickly and easily. and we test, or we write tests so that we have a better design in our code, which is more malleable, more flexible, and easier to work with, and that contributes to a great demo.
Can I add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Something that I like about Test First is that it it works. It just works if you're maybe a new developer in a new project, and maybe you're doing something new and you don't know like everything in the project, and you touch something. And the cool thing about having Test First is that if you break something, your test will actually tell you, hey, you break something. And well, I think that's pretty neat for new developers, so that they don't mess up with your code base.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's see, get my script back up here. All right, so we're working inside of a branch. We just switched to a new branching model called well, I don't even know what the name of it is. But if you Google search branching model, the first Google result that comes up is something like an effective branching model or something. I'm going to do it right now. Branching.
Git branching model, I guess.
Successful Git branching model.
Successful Git branching model by nvie.com. It's extremely good, and I highly recommend that to any team that wants to collaborate together on the same code base. So we're following that, and we're working inside of this develop branch. We're creating, we're working as on feature cards as pair programming teams. How does pair programming help ensure a fantastic demo? Well, pair programming has a lot of benefits. One is if Carlos and Juan Jose are working together and Carlos wins the lottery and moves to Cancun, then Juan Jose still knows everything that Carlos knows. So even though Carlos is off sipping pina coladas in Cancun, it doesn't really matter very much. We miss him, we miss Carlos, but he hasn't killed our project by leaving us high and dry. Juan Jose still has all of that, what we call tribal knowledge. So it ensures, it safeguards, it gives us an insurance to make sure that there are always at least two people in the know. Now, this has almost never happened. This is like that's definitely a big benefit to pair programming, but we've never had to deal with that because nobody's ever left us high and dry on anything. So what are some other tangible benefits to pair programming? Well, when there are two people working on the same code base, there are less errors. So your demo is not jeopardized by error-ridden code, and it also helps make better design decisions because as you're coding together, you find that your designs end up being better because two people are looking at the code and we're discussing openly those design decisions as we go. It also helps to maintain focus. I don't know if this happens to you all, but if I ever get interrupted when I'm working on code, it might take me 10, 15, 20 minutes to actually get back into the groove and be able to continue working at the same pace that I was before. And no one can really understand that except a programmer. So that's why my wife, when she interrupts me, it's like to her it's no big deal. And to me it's like, oh no, 30 more minutes before I can actually have some progress. So pair programming, on the other hand, I get interrupted. I'm pair programming with Richard, and I get interrupted, and Richard did not get interrupted. So he can help me get back on the horse a lot faster. And so for me, at least, focus is a big benefit to pair programming. So all of those things contribute to a great demo by making sure that we finish things on time. We don't we don't get behind because of interruptions or because of lack of tribal knowledge or because of bad design decisions. Any awesome developer is capable of making bad design decisions or over engineering things.
I was gonna say that pair it's probably like insurance.
Yeah, yeah, it's so good in many ways. Highly recommend pair programming to any team. Let's see. Okay, so we create a new branch for every card that we work on. It's not really called branch per feature. It's more like branch per card. And we name our cards with the number of the. We name our branches with the number of the card, and then some quick description about the card. And that helps us when we're looking at pull requests and things like that. So we're going to be driving out our features out through unit tests, and I'm going to be bold and I'm going to say that we should be doing this in the back end and the front end. I'm not very good yet at developing unit tests in the front end, but I need to be, and that's where I'm headed personally, and I hope that's where we're all headed. One thing that's extremely important that we don't always do, but we really must. And I recommend this to anyone, is end-to-end development. We need to be developing things from the, my dad would say, from the rooter to the tutor. We need to be developing things in code sense, the database all the way up to the front end, and not trying to split things into separate teams. For our team, it's never really worked out very well, having like front-end developers and then back-end developers. Things seem to work out a lot better when the same pair of developers goes from the back end, creates everything in the back end, creates that API call, everything's working down to the database, and then those same developers move into the front end and start integrating it, creating that front-end experience. Even when some developers are not very strong in the front end, if they're paired with somebody that is, they're going to get strong pretty soon. Same thing goes for the back end. If somebody's stronger in the front end, not very strong in the back end, if they pair with somebody that is strong in the back end, they're going to get strong in the back end. And that way everybody's well-rounded and nobody is working in a silo. We can all become full-stack developers. And that end-to-end idea is extremely important. I've seen it fail so many times where we tried to split things up between front-end and back-end. It always just works out so much better working end-to-end. So when we're finished with our development on a card, we're going to merge it back into develop. That's going to automatically deploy things to a dev environment. And then the next thing is really exciting that we've started doing in the past year, and I recommend this also to any team, is any team of developers really should have some other people that are not necessarily in the code as deeply as the developers are, and not quite so tied to somebody that hasn't spent 5 hours on this feature, that can come behind the developer and look at things and compare it to what the client has said they want, and do it very quickly, but then be able to give the developers quick feedback on quick and friendly feedback on how they did. Is there anything that needs to be improved, changed? Did the developer forget anything? Sometimes when we're in the weeds as developers, we can forget about little details that might actually be really important to the client. So of course I'm talking about QA, and the idea that we've really been striving for is this idea of QA on the heels of developers. By on the heels, I'm talking about like as if we're walking. And somebody's walking behind me, and they're walking so close that their toes are touching my heels, and so that's what I'm imagining when I think of QA, coming behind the devs, just so close to the devs. Devs finish a feature, they move a card, 5 minutes later or less, QA is in there and looking at it and providing feedback. What this does is that the developers can, once they get that quick feedback, they can use that quick short-term memory and go directly to the fix and fix it much faster. We're talking about in possibly minutes or seconds, that fix. But if it's days or even several hours after, the short-term memory of those developers is eaten up by other things that have gone on, other things that have happened, or just mere time. And so it takes that developer maybe hours to come back and fix something because they have to remember what was done, what was said, how it was done, and then it could have just taken minutes or seconds to fix, but instead it took hours because the feedback loop was really wide. So with QA, we need a very short feedback loop, so that we can find out very quickly how we did. So the next part of this talk is going to be about the internal demo, but we don't have enough time right now, and that is because we've had a really good discussion. So what I'll do is we'll put a bookmark in this talk, and we've actually got 7 more minutes, so I want to leave you guys some time to have comments or questions. But we'll do another one of these where we talk about the rest of the process, which is the next step in the process is the internal demo, which is extremely important. So I'll open the floor to you guys to answer any questions or ask any questions or make any comments, and we've got about 6 more minutes.
Okay, I maybe I can add something about the pair programming, because I think as a team we need to clarify the pair programming purpose, because in some projects we are not doing pair programming, or at least we are not doing the idea of pair programming. So what kind of stuff we can do to start doing a great pair programming? I mean, do we need to assign a card to a specific developer and specify that this card need to be do it in a pair programming or something like that? Because for example, maybe I can take one card and maybe the other developer is busy, so I'm working in this card alone, so I'm not doing any pair programming.
Right. So pair programming is not always. Well, we should say it's not always required. There are times when two devs are programming on the same code, and it gets to the point where maybe we're troubleshooting something, and it's taking a long time, and it's kind of laborious. Maybe we're moving pixels around with CSS. I don't know what it would be. We've all had times when we've gotten to the point where pair programming is just way too boring. It's not our fault. It's not maybe not the fault of the pair. Maybe they are communicating enough, and maybe they are following the rules of etiquette with pair programming. But maybe it's like just circumstances. The code is just not made for pair programming, like what you're describing. So I think the devs can recognize when that is happening, but should probably default to pair programming. So I can't necessarily look at a card and say this is not designed or this is not good for pair programming. I would have to get into code and maybe spend some time with my partner on that code to see. I mean, maybe we just get to a point where it doesn't work anymore. Can you all think of any examples of when pair programming is maybe a bad idea?
No, I mean, for example, in the sprint planning, can we decide if a car needs to be done in pair? For example, that car is a big card, and there are a lot of detail that we need to consider. So for example, as a Scrum Master, I would like that not only one developer be in charge or in that specific car, because there is a lot of thing and maybe he can get blocked or something like that. So maybe in some way during the sprint planning talk about, okay, it's desired that this car need to be done in a paid programming but not forcefully or something like that, because when we do the sprint planning, we move all the cars for the sprint into the list ready for development. So the devs decide if they want to do paid programming or not. That's the way how we work right now.
Yeah. At the sprint planning, so what you're saying is in the sprint planning, possibly we could decide
Or
this
recommend.
is pair or recommend this is pair programming, this is not, so on and so forth. And
Yeah.
what I'm thinking is well, maybe we could think of it from the other perspective, from the other direction. So instead of saying everything is not pair programming, but this, and this are. What I'm thinking is think of everything as pair programming,
Mhm.
but this maybe not, this maybe not. So assume that everything is, but then maybe pick a few things that look like they wouldn't work. Or what you could do is what I think what we're doing right now, or I hope we're doing right now, is we just assume that everything is pair programming, and the pair can get into the process, and they're in the pair programming session. They can decide for themselves. Okay, this is not going to work for pair programming. I'm going to go do this. You do this, and that seems like a good idea, because that allows the devs to decide in the moment and
Okay,
make a decision. Because
but those.
the planning session, we might not realize exactly whether something is working or is going to work for pair programming or not.
Yeah, so personally, I think that when you're planning, you, as Byron said, the default focus is you're gonna pair on something. But sometimes you say like, well, this tag is very trivial. I can do it alone. We don't need pair programming for this. And so you sometimes identify when you can work alone and when you should be doing pair programming. Always keep in mind that you should be doing the pair programming. Um, and I think the most important phase when you're doing that is when you're doing architectural changes, because that's something that everybody should know. When you're just adjusting this margin or things like that, you don't need pair programming for that. Uh, you know how to do it, the other developer how to do it, and so you don't need it. But yeah.
Okay, I will change my question then. So, in what time is necessary to talk about those kind of stuff? In the sprint planning, or maybe just developer to developer, or not sure. That's my question, because we don't talk about that in all the sprint. Maybe I take a card and I say, I will do pay programming in this, so I will ping Richard to see if he's available to do pay programming.
Right. I think that we should strive to always pair, except for some of the examples that Juan Jose mentioned, where you're just changing a margin or something simple. You've done it 100 times. You don't need to pair on that. But for most of the things where we're actually working on something new, we're not just fixing a little bug. We're working on something new, that like a new feature we're contributing something that's going to make a big impact on the demo, well, that should be pair programming from the very beginning. And we shouldn't have to discuss whether or not we're going to pair program on something like that. I mean, we're talking about something that's going to take more than 5 minutes. It's going to take 3 hours to finish. That should be pair programming, I think.
Yeah, and when to do it and when
in the heat of the moment. In the heat of the moment, you get 2 hours into it, and you're doing this task now that's really monotonous, and you're just finishing the feature, but you're on this thing that's really monotonous. It's in the heat of that moment, you as a pair programming team can decide to split up.
yeah, and the ones to decide whether or not they're gonna work alone should be the devs. So they should communicate between them as a pair, like because they're the ones that know if they can do it
Right.
alone or not. So that's not. I don't think that's something that should be imposed. Like, well, you should be able to do this alone.
Yeah.
And just to clarify that paid programming is not for devs. It's not just for devs, correct, Byron? So
It's
QA,
for everybody.
yeah. So maybe a developer can pay programming with a QA or QA to QA or including the product owner to dev.
Yeah,
The case
and
when
all of that contributes to a fantastic demo, because we're working together, one team, single-minded focus on that goal to get to the end of the demo or to get to the end of the sprint and have an amazing demo for the client. I don't know about you all, but I've got to get back to work. I really appreciate your time today. I really appreciate your comments and questions. And we'll pick up where we left off at another time and keep going. So, bye.
okay, bye bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Later.